Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Another week has come to an end. We are at Friday finally, and we are here doing the FOMO Friday, which means that we don't want you to have that fear of missing out. So what we do every Friday here on the podcast, we bring you the stories of the week that you should probably know a little bit about. And this week is no exception. We have a number of things that we wanted to cover for you, and the first of which is from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this. We have been keeping you informed about the pipe bomb investigation here on the podcast, and I told you we would keep an eye on it, and we would look and we would bring you anything that came up that was newsworthy. Well, that happened this week. Brian Cole Jr. worked for a bail bonds company run by his father that worked to free illegal immigrants from ICE facilities and sued the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security. Well, who is he? Well, weeks before, 30-year-old Cole Jr. allegedly planted pipe bombs at the headquarters of the Democratic and Republican parties on January 5th of 2021. That's what a court ruled. Court ruled against the company in its lawsuit attacking the Trump administration on immigration issues. And an FBI affidavit in the case notes that the suspect worked for a bail bonds company and lives with his mother. Later in 2021, the company held a press conference bemoaning anti-black racism with a left-wing attorney, Cole Sr. and Benjamin Crump, who represented the family of Trayvon Martin, attempted to sick the Biden Department of Justice on a local Tennessee prosecutor who had raised questions about the bail bonds company. Quote, a high-profile civil rights attorney is called for a federal investigation into Rutherford County prosecutor accused of discrimination. This is what a Nashville news outlet, WPLN, reported on November 16th of 2021. Well, Cole Sr., who is black, claimed racial persecution by Rutherford County Assistant District Attorney John Zimmerman. Zimmerman had raised concerns about the bail bonds company's ethics, noting that it had been suspended from operation in a nearby district. Well, standing alongside Crump, he said to the media, he's defaming me. He's called my insurance company. We hope the Department of Justice can come in and do a brief investigation because we've seen a lot of questionable acts that Mr. Zimmerman has demonstrated towards minority-owned companies. Yeah, so this is the little bit of background behind the guy who just got arrested for planting those pipe bombs the day before January 6, 2021. Crump said, it is appalling that we want these allegations to be investigated to the highest level of government. They called him a punk and a thug, and why? What is it about him? A lot of people believe they know the answer, unquote. Well, in April of 2025, a Tennessee appeals court found that sanctions against the company were called for due to repeated misconduct. And the elder Cole lied about having never filed for bankruptcy or having financial problems, when he in fact had filed for bankruptcy twice and had tax liens against him. This is what a Tennessee Court of Appeals affirmed. Cole Jr. and his father worked as bail bondsmen under various company names, including Free U Bonds, initially in Fairfax County, Virginia. Public records suggest that the father he moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, around 2017. One of those corporate names was Statewide Bonding Inc., an immigration bond company that helps illegal immigrants avoid jail. Quote, an immigration bond will secure the release of an undocumented alien from an immigration facility with the guarantee that conditions of the immigration bond requirements are met, is what the webpage says. Brian Cole is listed as Statewide Bonding's owner in a dispute over bonds for illegal immigrants in the state of Colorado. Statewide sued the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security over its policies relating to illegal immigrants. Weeks before Cole allegedly planted the pipe bombs on November 10th of 2020, the U.S. Court of Appeals in D.C. sided with the administration on the case, ruling that the lower court had properly thrown out all statewide claims. One of several lawsuits complained that statewide was being harmed unfairly when its illegal immigrant clients failed to appear at court dates. Can you, I mean, shocker, right? Quote, statewide have secured the bond of thousands of immigrants. If an immigrant does not appear, the failure to appear is considered a breach of bond. And when a bond is breached, at that point, all plaintiffs are subsequent to a steep financial penalty, it said. Hundreds of plaintiffs' clients failed to appear because defendants failed to provide said person with a specified date, time, and location to appear in court, it continued. And then only after the subject immigrant fails to appear, these defendants expect plaintiffs to find the person in less than 10 days, and many times less than 48 hours, or suffer the penalty of paying the sum total of millions of dollars, unquote. Well, the getting back to the January 6th pipe bomb things, the January 6th pipe bombs were used by Democrats and media to portray Trump supporters as violent, though during the Biden administration, the FBI claimed it was unable to locate a suspect, and Kamala Harris, who was 20 feet from the bomb at the DNC, never mentioned it. Charging papers say Cole Jr. began purchasing bomb-making parts by May of 2019 during the Trump administration and long before any dispute about election results. They say his cell phone signal showed that he was in the vicinity of the DNC and the RNC when the bombs were placed. The Biden administration quickly used similar cell phone data to apprehend hundreds of Trump supporters for minor crimes. So I wanted to go just a little bit deeper into how they were able to identify this particular individual, because again, this has been the problem, is that we have video and everything, but we had nobody arrested for this. And charging documents for the suspected Washington D.C. pipe bomber were unsealed in court on Thursday as the Justice Department announced the arrest of Brian Cole Jr. According to the FBI affidavit, Cole is 30 years old. He's 5 feet 6 inches tall, and he works, as I said, for the bail bondsman, as a bail bondsman, and lives with his mother in Woodridge, Virginia. The feds say that Cole used credit cards to purchase bomb-making equipment from Virginia stores, and he bought 6 pipes, 12 black end caps, and electrical wires from numerous different Home Depots between May 2019 and November 2020. He also purchased steel wool, which was packed inside the pipe bombs from the national chain. Cole purchased 5 9-volt batteries, battery connectors from Micro Center, some using cash, and bought kitchen timers from Walmart, according to the charging documents as well. He also bought tools like protective gloves and disinfectant wipes on November 24th of 2020. And the pipe bomber investigation dragged on, like we said, for nearly 5 years. And many Americans doubted that the federal government would ever find the culprit. The FBI offered the public a $500,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person who planted the bombs at the Republican and Democratic Party headquarters on the eve of January 6th, 2021. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino said at a press conference Thursday afternoon that federal investigators closed in on Cole through internal work and not a public tip. So it doesn't look like anybody's going to be receiving that $500,000. But he said, quote, "You are not going to walk into our capital city, put down 2 explosive devices, and get away. We would track him to the end of the earth. We didn't have to track him that far. He wound up being a Woodbridge, Virginia resident. But data from Cole's cell phone provider showed that he was, as I said, near the RNC and the DNC at that time, between 7:39 p.m. and 8:24 p.m. On that day. Data from the cell phone company provided in February of 2021 contained an error that was corrected 2 months later, said the filing. And Cole drives a 2017 Nissan Sentra with Virginia plates, and it was captured on a license plate reader on I-395 South near the Capitol at 7:34 p.m. 3 weeks before the bombs were placed, on December 14th of 2020, Cole bought food from a restaurant in the area, and Attorney General Pam Bondi ripped the Biden administration for failing to solve the case for 4 years, saying, quote, "The total lack of movement undermined trust in law enforcement. It languished for 4 years until Kash Patel and Dan Bongino came to the FBI. There was no new tip, no new witness. The information had been sitting at the FBI for 4 years," Bondi said. So, like I say, there's been some speculation on different things using some AI stuff and things like this, and we reported on that. But it looks like at this point we now know who it is, and it was done just simply through FBI work. And why it could not have been done under the Biden administration leaves an open question, I think. But the good news is that the Biden administration is not in charge of the FBI any longer. And guess what? The FBI was able to track this guy down. So we'll see. We'll follow the trial and see what goes on with that. Another really big story this week, where the Democrats have really tried to make some hay, was about a drug boat, and how the drug boat was struck. There was a strike on the boat. As you know, many drug boats particularly from South America and things like that are in international waters, and they're coming up to bring drugs into the U.S. Well, the Trump administration has been basically blowing them out of the water. It's literally, and in this case, it was a boat that was struck and then struck again. And of course, liberal media has just been all over that, saying, "Wow, there was no reason for the second strike. That's that's against international law. It's a war crime. All this kind of stuff, right?" Trying to come after Pete Hegseth. Well, an unreleased video of a second strike on the suspected narco-terrorist appears to support War Secretary Pete Hegseth and the War Department, according to ABC News. The report suggests that that second strike, was not only justified, it was necessary to complete the intended mission. ABC News anchor Martha Raddatz weighed in on the news information from an anonymous source on Wednesday evening, saying that it supported reports of 2 survivors remaining after a first strike on a suspected drug-running boat in the Caribbean, where the new intelligence diverged, she reported, was that the suspect narco-terrorists were not simply clinging to wreckage, like, they wanted us to think, like, something out of the Titanic or something, right? The two appeared to be making attempts to salvage their cargo and may have remained in contact with others in their network once the vessel had been disabled. So basically, the first strike had disabled the boat. They were able to get back in. They were able to try to contact their friends to come get the remaining drugs. And so the second strike had to happen in order to carry out that mission. Quote, and tonight, new information, according to a source familiar with the incident, the two survivors climbed back onto the boat after the initial strike, Reddit's told the host, David Moore, on World News Tonight. Quote, they were believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs. Because of that, it was determined they were still in the fight and valid targets. A JAG officer was also giving legal advice. So again, David, the video will be key, and Admiral Bradley will be on the Hill tomorrow behind closed doors, unquote. The Washington Post published an anonymously sourced exclusive, as they called it, on Saturday, claiming that the things had gone very differently, however. And according to the initial story, a direct order to kill them all, as they put it, quote, kill them all, unquote, was attributed to Secretary Hegseth. And the scenario described suggested that the two survivors had been clinging to wreckage when a second strike was ordered to ensure that they weren't left alive. Of course, that does not seem to be the story now, does it? Or the truth, I guess. That was a story, not the truth. Democrats and legacy media outlets were only too happy to run with that narrative, and they spent much of the day Sunday declaring Hegseth, along with anyone who had been involved carrying out his order, was likely guilty of war crimes and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, the narrative continued into the week as the hosts of ABC The View, the brain trust there, not only proclaimed Hegseth guilty of war crimes. I mean, they're judge and jury, right? But they insisted that if other military service members were eventually were eventually tried for war crimes, it would be because Hegseth's orders had effectively set them up. Yeah, I've said this before, but you literally could do an entire podcast on just what the dumb things that come out of the mouths of The View happen each day. But I just throw in little tidbits here and there just because it's funny, right? But anyway, as soon as that story came out, you knew that wasn't the case. You knew that wasn't going to be the real story. And guess what? It wasn't. But what is a true story comes out of Kent State. At Kent State University in Ohio, an a cappella group that claims, get this, this is rich, to oppose discrimination. They claim to oppose discrimination. Reportedly enforced a policy that barred white students from even auditioning for certain solos. Then moved to discipline a member who dared question it. Yeah, emails obtained by Camus Reform showed that vocal intensity a cappella, that's the name of the group, vocal intensity a cappella, they limited solos in one song strictly to people of color, arguing that allowing white students, again, this is real, okay? This is a true story. They argued that allowing white students to audition would amount to cultural appropriation. We can't have white students singing songs of people of color. Come on. The rule didn't set well with Mark Phillips, by the way. He's a year 3 member of the group's beatbox. He's the group's beatboxer, who asked the group's executive board how that policy squared with Kent State's own ban on racial discrimination. That's a great question, don't you think? Well, Phillips wrote that while he respected concerns about authenticity, quote, art, music, and culture are meant to be shared and celebrated, not gatekept. And that the strongest performance should win. So I guess what he's trying to say here is that we should not be segregating ourselves out. Is that what he's trying to say? That our cultures and should blend and unite together in many ways? That merit should be a part of the equation? Yeah, that's what he's trying to say. And for asking that question, he is in trouble. Yeah, for raising that question, the board accused Phillips of violating the university's anti-discrimination policy. Okay, the irony is not lost here. That's the very policy meant to prevent the kind of race-based exclusion that he was objecting to. The board placed him on probation and ordered him to appear before the entire group in a disciplinary hearing where he would plead his case, as they put it, and potentially face permanent removal. All because he asked the question about this being racist. How is this not racist? How is this not something that you say you're against? And for asking that question, of course, remember, liberals are all about, the freedom of speech, except when you say things that they don't like. He's facing permanent removal. The board doubled down, in fact, in follow-up correspondence, reiterating that the solos would remain restricted to black students unless reversed by a vote. The planned hearing involved closed-door proceedings, time-limited speeches, and even guidelines for immediate expulsion should the group choose removal. And if kept, Phillips would have been placed on months-long probation. That structure stands in stark contrast to Kent's written rules, which explicitly forbid racial discrimination and retaliation against students who challenge it. But does that matter? Does that matter? It doesn't. The university's policy states, quote, this policy prohibits discrimination and harassment based on race, color, religion, gender, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, ancestry, disability, genetic information, age, and protected military and veteran status. Retaliation for reporting or participating in the complaint process is also prohibited. That's straight from their policy, that university's policy. Kent State University, that's their policy. It also clashes with Ohio's recently enacted Advanced Ohio Higher Education Act, which bars race-based advantages in public universities. Phillips ultimately resigned and called the disciplinary process a performance ambush aimed at punishing him for oppressing discrimination. In his resignation letter, he wrote this. He said, denying opportunities based on skin color is discrimination by definition, unquote. How can you argue with that? I mean, isn't that really what this is all about? Denying opportunities based on skin color is discrimination by definition. The only reason why whites could not try out for the solo part, they couldn't even try out for it, was because of the color of their skin. Speaking to Campus Reform, Phillips said, "What I really want is for people to bring common sense back and stop pretending that people of color are oppressed in this country. I want people to realize that we are meant to celebrate what we have in common instead of dividing and fighting over our differences." I mean, that how can you argue against that? And so he's not the beatboxer for that particular group any longer. But man, he makes a lot of sense. Well, NVIDIA. You probably know of NVIDIA. You probably, if you have any kind of retirement stock, you probably own some stock in it. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, he widely recognized as really the leading figure in AI. And he gives credit not to himself, but to President Trump for saving the AI industry. Yeah, that's what he said this week, and it created some waves. Quote, "The fact that he came into office and the first thing that he said was, 'Drill, baby, drill.' His point is we need energy growth. Without energy growth, we can have no industrial growth." And that was it. Saved it. Saved the AI industry. That's what he told podcaster Joe Rogan. He says, "I got to tell you flat out, if not for this pro-growth energy policy, we would not be able to build factories for AI." On the first night of his presidency, Trump wasted no time addressing American energy. He declared a national energy emergency, stating, "An affordable and reliable domestic supply of energy is a fundamental requirement for the national and economic security of any nation." And while Huang told Rogan that long-term, the quote, "the amount of energy necessary for artificial intelligence is for most people will be minuscule, utterly minuscule." He made it clear that today energy is the bottleneck for AI growth. And I will say, I mean, that's one of the resurgence of the nuclear industry is because we absolutely need that energy in order to progress in that AI area. His warning is backed by Wall Street. Goldman Sachs estimates that power demand from data centers could rise by 160% by the end of the decade due to AI. Trump has spoken openly about the scale of that challenge. In a speech discussing the future of AI, the president recalled learning how much electricity AI plants would require. He says, quote, "You got to be kidding. Double what we produce right now for everything." And so, yeah, I mean, this is a big deal. And unfortunately, we had a president who did not understand any of this. He didn't understand a lot of things, but he didn't understand that in particular. And so, 5 days, in fact, before President Biden left office, his administration issued the AI diffusion rule, creating new compliance and export requirements for advanced AI technology. NVIDIA, of course, quickly condemned the rule and later supported Trump's administration's decision to rescind it. But I mean, we're talking about exactly 2 months after Biden's AI diffusion rule had been in place, and 3 months before it was to take effect, the Trump administration actually rescinded that rule entirely. And so, what does he say? I mean, here's the CEO of NVIDIA saying that Donald Trump saved that industry. And so, yep, it's some really good news there. Well, let's end let's end the week on kind of a funny note. This comes from UPI, and they said that an animal control officer was summoned to a liquor store in Virginia where a raccoon had broken in and had ransacked the shelves and passed out drunk in the bathroom. Yeah, Hanover County Animal Protection Shelter said on social media that an officer responded Saturday to a report of an animal break-in at the ABC store in Ashland, and the officer found the Black Friday break-in had been perpetrated by a raccoon that had ransacked several shelves, sampled multiple different varieties of liquor from broken bottles on the floor, and then settled down to sleep it off on the floor of the store's restroom. He's right next to the toilet, in fact, the picture shows. The raccoon's liquor-fueled rampage came to an end when the officer secured our masked bandit and transported him back to the shelter to sober up before questioning, is what the post said. The especially trashed trash panda was found to be uninjured. That's good, right? Other than maybe a hangover and poor life choices, is what the officials said. The raccoon was released back into the wild after sobering up at the shelter, by the way. And we'll see if he goes back for more. So anyway, would love to hear your thoughts on stories of the week. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.